Well, Otani's gonna Otani. Shohei pitches a gem and leads the Halos to a win last night. And John and I are going to talk about freak angel injuries. And we're going to look at three pitchers that we were rumored to sign this last offseason, but we didn't. And we're going to ask this question: would they have helped us? You're Locked On with Mike and Jon, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. If you're listening on the audio side, you can rate and review the pod. And if you're watching on the video side, you can subscribe and click the bell to be notified every time a new episode drops.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Locked On Angels. You've got the Frisch Brothers, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros, here with you. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
And if you want to get in on the conversation about anything we covered today, feel free to follow us at Locked On Angels. You can also catch us on Twitter and Instagram at Super Halo Bros. Mike and I wanted to make a note that, you and I are lifelong fans of this team, and we do our best to deliver Angels news and discussions. And I got to thinking about, our beat writers, they do a great job. I really appreciate that they do, but just because there are beat writers doesn't mean that they're actually fans of the team. So just so you know, if you're listening to us, you've got a special connection with us because we love this team through thick and thin, and we're happy that you're here with us. But Mike, we got to get into last night's game. I mentioned this on our Locked On Now, that if you want to get something done right, you got to go out there and do it yourself. And that's exactly what Shohei Ohtani did on the mound last night.
He looked incredible, John, and he has actually looked incredible over his last three starts. We'll get to that in just a minute, but let's talk about last night for a minute. 24 swings and misses, Johnny. That was incredible to watch, and it was his third highest swings and misses. He did it against Houston, and he did it against the Red Sox, and then he did it against the White Sox last night. 5 2/3, 5 hits, 1 walk. Again, it's the walks when they're low. Shohei is on a roll, right? 11 Ks, 108 pitches. And I don't know if you saw when they came out, when Ray Montgomery came out to get Shohei in that 6th inning, and he was 5 2/3. You could tell that Shohei was like, come on, I want to do one more. I want to do one more batter. But I think that it was the right move. I know that you and I have been on that constantly. When Joe Madden was there, Phil Nevin was there. Who's managing the team now? Who's running this thing? And so now with Ray Montgomery in charge, you and I have kind of been hard on, let him go, let him stay in there. But his last pitch was a strike. It was a swing and a miss, but it was a slider that was up, and he got lucky. And so I'm glad that they did remove him when they did. He lowered his ERA to 2.68. He's 7-4 on the season. He's won his last 3 starts, 111 total strikeouts so far this season, Johnny.
Yeah, he has been the only watchable thing about this team sometimes, especially when he's on the mound. Look, he stopped the losing streak. He got them a huge win last weekend when I was there watching him take care of the Royals. And then he did it again a week later against the White Sox. And you know what? All credit where credit is due, but Mr. Frontrunner for the MVP, Aaron Judge, I don't see him on the mound, and I don't see him pitching games like this. So I'm just going to put that out there into the world because Shohei has only gotten better. Shohei has only gotten better, Mike, and he's getting better on the mound. He's getting better. You can see his average is starting to climb again, and I think it has everything to do with the fact that he's got Trout in front of him and Walsh behind him. So that gives him a little bit more protection when he's at the plate. And of course, on the mound, nobody does it like him. And it's one of those situations where you saw the pitch count get up there pretty, and it took, 20 pitches in the first and 20 pitches in the fifth or the sixth when he was in there. And you just kind of knew that he wasn't going to get the length. And that's where you and I as fans get worried because he knows, Shohei knows, and we know that he has to turn it over to the bullpen, and that's the last thing anybody wants. But it was the right guys. It was Quijada, and then Tepera, and then, of course, Raisel Iglesias. So the guys who had the previous night off were able to come in and finish this game and close it down. And then he's just been incredible in terms of he struck out 30 batters over a 3-game span and any runs either. So that's been incredible to watch.
All right, quick Angels quiz, Johnny, for you. He is the third Angels pitcher in history to do that. Strike out 30 batters and allow 0 runs in 3 starts. All right, so there's 2 others. Can you name the 2 others?
Well, I'm always going to guess Nolan Ryan.
For sure. So it's Nolan Ryan as one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then your Weaver reference?
That's it. Yeah, there's a Weaver reference. That's a good guess. Not Weaver, but he was a part of the pitching staff when Weave was around.
When Weave was around, it can't be Santana. No, Washburn.
No.
I'm trying to think who could do that. Lackey.
Yes, John Lackey.
Okay.
Yep, that World Series hero. And then I saw this stat. Ohtani is one of 4 pitchers in the MLB to do that in the last 10 years. 30 batters, striking them out, no runs, 3 start span. So it was Ohtani, DeGrom, Chris Sale, and Clayton Kershaw. So that's a great group of people to be in, right?
Company.
Absolutely. And then how about the pop last night from Rengifo? And I know that I have been a Rengifo fighter, I guess is what I'm going to call myself.
Doubter.
Because doubter is probably a better word. I've fought to maybe not have him in the lineup, but they did move him up. And when I saw the lineup, I thought, oh, great. I can see that they're trying to balance the lineup out a bit. But what you see from Rengifo last night is a little bit of pop. His 4th home run, and that was exciting to see.
Yeah, you know what? As long as he keeps improving at the plate, Mark Gubicza noted a lot of pitches that he received last night were pitches that he previously struggled with over years past. So if he's improving and making changes to his approach at the plate, then more power to him, because I'm not going to wish for a guy to not have success. I just felt like for a while we've tried the Rengifo experiment over and over and over again. And unless he's going to play up to like a Walsh level or something like that, then it's like, okay, then you stick with him, but let him go. But by all accounts, he's very well. I'll be interested to see what happens when Fletcher comes back to this team, because somebody's going to have to go. Somebody's going to have to move. Perhaps they try Fletcher over at third, Rengifo at third. They might make a move like that, and we might see McKinnon back down in AAA. But at the same time, I mean, I'm not going to discredit anybody who's improving at the plate, and Rengifo was certainly doing that, and he provided the insurance, because it was a 2-0 game. Then it was 4-0, and then that run squeaked in because the ball got between the legs of Max Stassi. So much for the conversation about great defense the other day from Stassi. Of course, he did stop another pitch that he spiked, and we all went, well, I don't think Kurt would have stopped that one. And so there was a little give and take in terms of the catching conversation. But Mike, speaking of that, we have an off day today. We are headed to on the start of a 9-game trip. It's going to be against the Houston Astros and the Miami Marlins and the Baltimore Orioles. So there's a lot of interesting matchups coming here. But let's talk about who we've got lined up for the pitching matchups this weekend.
I like the guys that we have lined up. We have Lorenzen, Sandoval, Suarez. Now, here's the problem. They have each started 1 game against the Houston Astros, and they haven't done well. Lorenzen went 3 1/3 in his last start. Sandoval only went 4 innings, and Suarez went 4 1/3. Now, what they have going for them is Joe Maddon was the manager at the time. So that quick Maddon hook might have been a part of that issue there. And so if they're going to be competitive against Houston and get some win, they're going to need to have their pitchers step up. But I'll tell you, I look at those 3 names, and I think that there's a possibility of a sweep if those guys are on their game. And wouldn't that be just too sweet?
Man, that's something else. That's quite a proclamation. And I could get behind that. I mean, look, Lorenzen, Sandoval, Suarez, those are guys who go out there and typically pitch a great game. I know Sandoval has trouble getting wins because the Angels never give him enough run support. So let's hope that they can go out there and he can continue to do his thing where he keeps these Halos in the game. And of course, Lorenzen, who struggled a bit his last 2 starts. Let's hope that he's able to turn it around because we know he has, and the stuff is good. And of course, Jose Suarez, I think, benefited from the opener. I know it was some shady shenanigans from us.
Yeah.
But if they decide to roll with an opener again and then let Suarez go 6 innings strong, I'm all right with that. So here's hoping that we head to Houston and get some wins. This is a prove it series for our Halos, and we got to show that we can compete with these tough teams.
Well, Johnny, you said that we are fans of this team. We're not just hosting this podcast. So sometimes our takes are going to be reasonable, and then our takes are going to be ridiculous, like a sweep this weekend. That's why they tune in to Locked On Angels. And coming up, we're actually going to talk about the pitchers that we didn't sign and if they would have helped us this season. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, Locked On Angels is brought to you by LinkedIn, Johnny.
It's brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. As you prepare for the fall, you're also preparing for growth, both personally and professionally. It's going to be here before you know it, be over. But as your small business grows, LinkedIn Jobs is here for you to find the people that you want to talk to, and for free. You can create a free job minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond. Go to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates, the right skills and experience, so you can quickly who you'd like to interview and who you'd like to hire. It's why small business Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. And did you know that nearly 40 million jobs visit LinkedIn? That's the case, then you're going to want to go ahead and post your job for free at .com/LockedOnMLB. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnMLB to post your job for free. And of course, and conditions do apply.
Okay, so Archie Bradley last Sunday leaps the fence and falls on his elbow during the fight and fractures his elbow, and he is out a month. And you and I actually off air started talking about some of the freak injuries. We mentioned a couple of those yesterday on yesterday's pod. But then Angels Twitter started to go off about some of those freak injuries. And it was kind of like a moment of reminiscing, John. I started singing the song by
it's cathartic.
Yeah, I'm just reminiscing. And so I thought, hey, why not just talk about some of those freak injuries that have happened to the Angels over the years? Because that sounds fun, right? And so I don't know if you remember this or not, because I know that you really started paying attention to the Angels in the late 2000s and early 2010s. But we signed Mo Vaughn. And when we signed Mo Vaughn, he was an MVP with the Red Sox, and it looked like it was going to be a huge, huge signing for us. But as the Angels have shown us in the past, big signings don't mean big numbers. And so Mo did have a couple of good years for us. But one of those years, he missed almost all of the season because he was running to catch a foul ball. And this was before the fencing was on the side of the dugout. And as he was going to catch it, he slips and fractures his ankle. And I remember watching that. And I think he even caught the ball. I remember watching that and going, oh, of course this happened, right? And I was in my late teens. And I remember going, of course, because I knew that this just has to happen to the Angels. So Mo Vaughn is the first freak injury on our list. What do you got, John?
I got to go with one still hurts a lot of Angel fans to this day, and it's Kendrys Morales hitting a walk-off grand and then jumping on home in the celebration, slipping and breaking his leg on home plate. Words out because it was just so traumatic. And Mike, he was never really the same after that. In fact, a big reason why I think we signed, it's not that we wouldn't have signed him anyway, but Kendrys wasn't there to play first base or DH. We needed another power bat. And so we had a good reason to go out and get Pujols while Kendrys was out. And honestly, it was a big shame because Kendrys ended up, he was a great start to his career. And while he wasn't quite the same when he came back to play with us, go on to eventually win a World Series with the Royals. He provided much needed offense that season in 2015.
He did.
And so, he all well wishes to him. And he had a couple of good runs. I think he was on the A's for a little while as well, while they were struggling and kind of rebuilding too. So that was a heartbreaker for sure.
Let me give you two from the 90s, two guys that I love, one being Tim Salmon. When he first came up, he was in the batter's box, and there was a batter in front of him, and it was during a game, and his bat broke, and a piece of it actually hit Tim Salmon in the arm.
Good grief.
And I think it might have been, I could be wrong, but I think it might have been his rookie year. So Tim was looking really, really good, and then had to be out for a few games because the bat hit him in the arm. And then similarly, I think it was 1999, Gary DiSarcina in spring training got hit by a bat from one of the coaches.
What?
And so he got hit by a bat from one of the coaches, didn't see him, and kind of ran into it. And poor Desar, man, he had a season in 95, I think it was, where he sprained his thumb or fractured his thumb, and then the Angels went on a tailspin. And then in 99, he just couldn't catch a break. His coaches are coming after him with a bat.
Right.
So there's two more freak injuries that I remember. And then there's one that you've talked about before. And so would you talk about it again? When Don Baylor was the hitting coach, and he was catching Vlad's first pitch. This one's interesting, right?
This one's about Don Baylor, not as a player on the Angels, but as a coach on the Angels. Of course, he was the hitting coach that year, and they're doing a ceremonial first pitch, all the great standing and all of the pomp. It's Vladdy Guerrero throwing it out, and he throws one, and Don leans it, and all the weight goes over the top of his leg, and he breaks his leg. So you have this horrible,
terrible,
embarrassing moment. And just like Don Baylor, he was already pretty old for a hitting coach. It was kind of cool that it was Don Baylor being our coach that season. So, of course, he goes down. I couldn't think of a more appropriate way for the cursed Angels to start their season than with a ceremonial first pitch that results in an injury. And let me tell you, before you get to your last, tell you about the Garrett Richards freak injury. Richards was on a tear in 2014. That rotation of Weaver and Wilson and Richards and Shoemaker too. He was on that team, and that was when he was really good. Richards goes to cover first base on a routine play, and his cleat gets stuck mound, and he bends his knee the wrong way, and so he tore all kinds of tendon in his knee, and that was the end of his season and sort of the end of his strong career. I know he pitched a few more years with us, but man, he had elbow issues after that weren't related to the knee, but it was just like, oh, that's all we need was we're on this, and Garrett Richards hurts his knee. We still made the playoffs, but it might have been a different kind of series if Richards was there. Maybe we kept in that series. But I know you've got one more from a Angels. How about Chuck Finley?
Chuck Finley was, and maybe still is, my favorite Angels pitcher. He's my Jared Weaver. I loved Chuck Finley. And there was, I think it was 96 or 97. It was late 90s, where he is backing up home plate because there was a runner coming around third, and he trips on his shoelace, and he sprains his wrist. And then he was out for a bit. And again, I remember this vividly because I was a huge Angel fan as a teenager. And it just seems like this happens to our team all the time. So if you're new to the Angels and you see these freak injuries and you go, oh my gosh, how could that happen? Just talk to John or just talk to me or just talk to a longtime Angel fan, and we'll tell you, oh, this is normal.
Yeah, this ain't nothing new. Look, Bradley doesn't have to feel bad because he's in some great company here. Mo Vaughn, Kendrys Morales, Desar, Tim Salmon, Don Baylor, Chuck Finley, G. Rich. Yeah, he doesn't have to feel bad about this one because it was inevitably going to happen to somebody. It was just a matter of when and where. And this freak injury stuff happens to the Angels all the time. So when we say that they're cursed, this is what we're talking about.
John, I remember, speaking of Chuck Finley, I remember getting a pack of baseball cards in the mid-90s and having 2 Chuck Finleys in that
Hey,
pack. And I was so excited, and I still have them, and they're in my collection of cards. And
nice.
the reason why I'm talking about cards is because I love the Sports Card Investor app. They're the reason why we're here today. They're sponsoring this show. And you and I both grew up collecting baseball cards. And so this app actually is really, really helpful because in years past, you'd have to buy the card collecting magazine and then you'd have to search for your card. And sometimes, most of the time, our Angel cards weren't in there because they weren't worth anything. And so, we didn't really know how much they were at all, if they were worth anything. But now with this app, you can check all of your cards and you can see some of the most popular cards, your favorite cards. You can find great deals on this app, and you can actually profit from your card collecting hobby. This app is available in the Google Play Store and also the Apple App Store. It's called the Sports Card Investor app, and you got to get it, especially if you're a baseball fan and if you collect baseball cards. Whether you're a casual collector or you're looking for an alternative investment opportunity, this is the app for you. So again, download the Sports Card Investor app for free in the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or you can go to sportscardinvestor.com/lockedon.
Of course, this episode is brought to you by our friends over at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your needs and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more like scores. BetOnline.net is also the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline is where the game starts.
We've talked a lot about pitching this year, and most of it has
Yes.
focused on the bullpen. But there were some starting pitchers that we were rumored to actually get in conversation with, get connected with, right, in the
Right.
offseason. And then we ended up not signing any of them because we went with our young guys, which I don't think was a bad move. And by the way, did you see that last night Reed Detmer struck out 14 guys in
I did see
AAA?
that.
Like, homie looks good, and so hopefully he'll be back
I
soon.
had some thoughts about that, and most of it had to do with the fact that, yes, there is a skill differential between MLB and AAA, but when the pressure's off and Reed Detmers is trusting his stuff and that's how you know he has good stuff, because he got 14 Ks, and I believe it was Garrett Toon on Twitter who let us know that he only struck out one person with a fastball. The rest was speed stuff. So yeah, I'm glad you brought up Reed Detmers because he has rotation and quite honestly got the no-hitter, but then it just seems like his confidence had gone away. So I think that the stint will help him out. But then we went with Shohei Ohtani, of course, as our ace. And then we signed Noah Syndergaard for this year. We have Patrick Sandoval, and those guys seem to be the 4 that we could have counted on the most. And then, of course, Michael Lorenzen, we identified him as a starter because he was relieving for the Reds. But Perry Minasian noticed that his pitch mix was too good to stay as a reliever. And when Lorenzen is on, he is on. And I hope that we get that this weekend against the Astros. But Mike, yes, you're right. There were some pitchers that we were in talks with and Angel fans really wanted to see signed. And I think the biggest one, honestly, was probably Marcus Stroman. That was the big free agent. I knew, Scherzer was out there and there was some talk like, oh, what if the Angels got Scherzer? And that would have been pretty cool. But you knew that he was going to seek a huge deal, and the Angels probably wouldn't go that direction. And the Mets have money pouring out of their ears. Their owner is willing to spend money no matter what. But when it comes to Marcus Stroman, that seemed like a really good opportunity for the Halos. Then there was some kind of talk that perhaps he was a little bit of a head case, a little bit too much of a pot stirrer in the locker room, and not good for a culture. See that in the way that he interacts with people sometimes. And look, who am I to judge? I'm not looking to insult anybody here, but I think the conversations that we heard about Marcus Stroman was, we're not really comfortable with him. And so now it seems like in hindsight, it was a good move because currently he's 2-5 with a 5.3 ERA. He's got a 0.1 WAR in 9 starts. Of course, he signed with the Cubs, and I can't imagine there's a lot of run support for the Cubs because
Yeah.
they are a team who is kind of in the getting some things together and kind of rebuilding. And so perhaps Marcus is kind of hoping that the future of the Cubs will be different, because that was a surprising signing for him to choose them. And I mean,
Yeah.
it is cool to be a Cub, but it wasn't like they were going to win now. So I think
Right.
I think we, with hindsight, we can say that the Marcus Stroman signing for us, it went our way, basically.
Yes. Another signing that went our way that I think we are surprised at is the Alex Cobb signing. Now, he went to San Francisco, and I did have a friend who is a fan of the Giants, and he said, "Tell me about Cobb." And I was positive. I was really positive. And he has texted me since, and he said, "You were wrong, Frisch. You were wrong." And so
You liar.
Cobb is 3-3. Yeah, Cobb is 3-3 with a 5.48 ERA, a negative 0.4 WAR in 10 starts. And I looked at Alex Cobb's stats today, and this is kind of him, right? Like last year, he was pretty consistent for us, but he was hurt, and he got hurt a little bit in San Fran. And I think at the end of the year, he probably will be up in the 8 to 9 win category, maybe the 7 to 8 loss category, with an ERA around 4. And so I look at those stats and I go, yeah, that wouldn't have helped us at all if he was in our rotation, maybe eating some innings, but I mean, why would you have him in there and not Suarez then, right? Why would you have him in there and not Detmers or Silseth, right? And so Alex Cobb is a bit of a surprise because he was pretty strong for us last year. And then there was one more name, Johnny, and why don't you talk about him? Carlos Rodon.
Yeah, Carlos Rodon was because of the shoulder injury. In fact, coming off a stint with the White Sox, and he didn't pitch toward the end of last season. He had a blissful year. In fact, it surprised a lot of people. It was like, ooh, this is his breakout year. And it fortunately worked out for him because it was a free agency year. It was his walk year. And so far, Carlos Rodon is 7-4 with a 2.62 ERA, a 3 WAR in 15 starts. So he has been a consistent part of that Giants rotation. Look at the Giants getting up all the names that we were considering in the offseason, right? But to me, it seems like Carlos Rodon was kind of the last free agent signing that the Angels should have gone with. There was a kind of a laundry list of names that they were linked to. And really after the lockout was over, it was like, well, I guess Rodon the only free agent pitcher left to do a deal with. And of course he ended up with the Giants. So he's somebody that we could have benefited from having on this team. However, I got to give credit to the Giants staff, and had a lot to do with keeping him on the mound, keeping him healthy, and helping him pin 6.2 ERA. Now, having said all of this, Mike, we have a conversation really quick to dive into in 2023 that could help the Angels. Of course, there's Aaron Nola with the Phillies, Joe Musgrove, Nathan Eovaldi, Justin Verlander, player option, Clayton Kershaw. He was also somebody that we had kind of considered perhaps getting on a 1-year deal. These are two that I would love to see with the Angels, Sean and Chris Bassett. I really wish that we would have traded for at least one of those guys. Who would you want from that group on the Angels?
I think I'm with you. I think I like Manaea or I like Bassett. I don't know if we're going to be able to get both because that's going to be a big investment, but I also like Joe Musgrove. I think that there's something about him that's intriguing. The other names, there's something about those guys that make me go, I think they're having maybe a good year, or they're injury prone, or they're old. I love Verlander, but Verlander's just old, right?
Yeah.
And so I think I would go with Manaea or Bassett as my priority for 2023. Who do you like?
I like Sean Manaea the most, I think. He's still got youth on his side. I know Chris Bassett is a tremendous pitcher. He's a little older. When I look at somebody like Jacob deGrom, it worries me because he just hasn't been able to stay on the field, unfortunately, and we haven't really got to see that tandem of Scherzer and deGrom do their thing in New York, which is kind of a shame for them. Yeah. And so, I mean, can you imagine where they'd be? They certainly wouldn't be getting swept by the Astros this season. Those two were in there. Aaron Nola is intriguing. I've only really been following on my fantasy team, and he's had some success this season. So the tier 2, tier 3 kind of starter that might be able to come help the Angels, kind of like how we were thinking Rodon would be some, toward the end of the free agency signings that we would be, and he wasn't our first choice, so to speak. I think Aaron Nola might fall in that second or third category, but I think would be an excellent addition as well. So lots of options coming in this off season, but before we get to that off season, let's turn this season around and at least get to 500 by the All-Star break. And hopefully we'll see Reed Detmers up with us again pretty soon. Hopefully he's back. And I think the Angels have a tough to talk all about that tomorrow, but let's get rolling this weekend.
Well, speaking of Reed Detmers, he comes from the Angels minor league system. And John and I actually had a great conversation with Lindsey Crosby of the Locked On MLB Prospects show, who is actually going to be breaking down the draft. And so after you make Locked On Angels your first listen, make the Locked On MLB Prospects show your second listen. This guy is incredible. Lindsey's like a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going to go deep on all of the stars that you're interested in, and maybe the stars you're not aware of, but your team has signed. And his podcast is free and available wherever you get your podcasts.
And of course, you guys can follow us over on Locked On Angels. You can also catch Mike and I on Twitter and Instagram at Super Halo Bros. Get in on the conversation. Leave a comment below if you're watching on the video side, or tweet at us or send us. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll do our best to respond. I'm always typing away and trying to get to everyone. So I appreciate you guys leaving comments and questions and thoughts for us. Mike, what do we have on deck tomorrow's episode?
Don't miss tomorrow's episode because it's brother versus brother. John and I are going to find out who's paying attention the most to the Angels. we gotta. Yeah, here we go. Now on the audio side, that's going to be weird, but on the video side, it's going to make sense. So brother versus brother tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Love that. All right, y'all. Until tomorrow, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
And we'll see you right back here tomorrow for more Locked